So are you gonna get that? You should get that.
What is going on, guys? Crazy Pizza Man 21 here with my long-awaited Resident Evil 7 video. I never really wanted to do this video. I don't like Resident Evil 7 all that much, but with a lot of talk about Resident Evil 8, a lot of people are saying they hope it's like 7, and I just want to really talk about how that's a really absolutely terrible idea. Resident Evil 7 has some good qualities. It's certainly not the worst game ever made, but it's another chapter in Resident Evil's long book of wasted potential, and Capcom's attempt to cash in on the first-person modern horror trends is what hinders the game in a lot of ways. Faceless protagonist in remote setting fighting off angry people that can't be killed until scripted boss fights for 500, Alex? Now, like with any video I do, which is fairly negative, I always try to start out with the good. Resident Evil 7, like I said, does have some good qualities to it. It has a lot going for it. For example, the setting and location is beautiful and unique to the franchise. Exploring the Baker Mansion and the surrounding areas are really interesting. There's been a few times I've genuinely stopped to admire the atmosphere of this game. And the main bosses in the early half of the game are great, and there's some really intense moments the game has. Jack Baker is a great character, and there's some real depth to his character, which I can't really say the same for the rest of this game or its characters, so that's about where my praise for the game ends. You play as Ethan Winters, who gets an email from his missing wife saying she's alive, so he goes out to look for her. And I'm gonna be blunt about this, Ethan is boring. Boring. He is a bland character, and apart from a guy looking for his wife, the guy has no personality whatsoever.
What the hell's going on?
Daddy's coming. We need to go.
Daddy?
The email cutscene in the very beginning Maya sends you is extremely annoying, and anyone who says the dialogue has gotten better since the original games is lying. This is painfully long. And like all the cutscenes in the game, it's unskippable, which, I mean, it's fine if you're playing the game once and you're trying to absorb the story, but having to watch this every time you want to replay Resident Evil 7 is borderline insufferable. I guarantee every time this cutscene plays out loud on someone's TV and Maya says, "Hey baby," an angel dies. Another cool design choice I'll give the game is that Ethan drives the car from Vanishing Point, so I guess that's kinda cool. Upon entering the guest house of the Baker family, you find her locked up, and once you find her, you're introduced to the most painfully boring intro to any game in existence. You know what makes a game great? The gameplay. You know what kind of gameplay sucks? Being stuck behind an invisible wall while an NPC explains the plot to you at a snail's pace. This could have been summed up in a cutscene that, you know, I could skip, but instead it kind of drags out for like 10 minutes, and it's really tedious, and it makes replaying the game really annoying. And this is by far one of the biggest gaming trends that has to be fucking killed and buried in a concrete box, H.H. Holmes style, and it should never, ever return. It makes replaying any section of any game that has it a actual chore. Like, this feels like a chore having to replay this game for this video, and that should not be a thing. One of the biggest problems that Resident Evil 7 has is that it tried following a lot of modern horror game tropes, and one of the biggest trends is the first-person perspective story where the viewpoint is first-person and the character is supposed to be someone that the player could fit themselves into because there's no really character there to begin with. And while this kind of works for some games, in Resident Evil it doesn't work. One of the things that makes a Resident Evil game are the characters. Resident Evil's characters are one of the most important parts of the game. All the games with uninteresting characters are also the most forgettable ones in the franchise. And Resident Evil 7 with Ethan's complete lack of character, I just can't say I care all that much about this dude or whatever he's trying to accomplish. And again, can I just reiterate that people critique the original games for bad dialogue, but can we just talk about some of the dialogue in this game? Like, the newer Resident Evils, the dialogue is not good. It's more polished now, but it doesn't make it any less cringe. And honestly, the older Resident Evil games, it's bad, but it's laughably bad. This is just cringe. Like, just listen to this, please.
What do you mean? You contacted me.
No, I wouldn't. Did I?
What? No.
Leave me alone! I've been bad. I deserve this.
What the fuck are you, Mia? Hey, wait. You gotta give me your gun.
You must have lost your mind.
Want to see my name in the obituaries? But you want to be a hero and save my life?
Tell me what you doing out here alone in the middle of the night.
Me? What about you?
Like, has Ethan ever talked to a cop before? This isn't how you talk to a cop. The characters are all just so cliche, and this Resident Evil 7's biggest fault, it's a boring game. Apart from Jack and his wife, the enemies in this game are very lame, and I think this is probably another one of the game's biggest flaws, is that the enemies in this game are just a result of Capcom's pure lack of creativity. The molded, when you first encounter them, they're kind of intimidating actually, but the problem is that they're the only common enemy in the game. Some of them are fat, some of them are fast boys.
I don't think you have any idea how fast I really am. I'm fast as fuck, boy.
You run into them so much. The only other enemies in this game that aren't molded or boss battles are bees. Bees! Compare this to the Resident Evil remake on the GameCube's Monster Verity. Hell, compare it to any other game in the series Monster Verity. There's literally no variety in this game to the enemies. You're fighting the same monsters the entire game. And I just want to point out the fact that ever since Resident Evil 4, Capcom has reused the chainsaw enemy, and also with the exception of maybe 5, each game has also contained a variation of the regenerator, and none of them come even close to the level of intensity you got from fighting them in the Resident Evil 4. Molded are basically just bootleg regenerators. But even though the chainsaw enemy has been recycled in every mainline entry since 4, even in both Revelations games, this is actually definitely one of the better ones. Jack's boss battle is actually pretty cool. Because Jack, unlike most of the characters in this game, actually has some character to him, and some of the quotes he says during the battle are really cool. But seriously, where are the swamp monsters and gators, Capcom? How the hell do you have a monster game taking place in a swamp with no gators? Like, no monster gators or anything. That's just a given. And I mentioned earlier how the bosses are only good in the beginning. Yeah, because let's talk about how Jack Baker and Eve's boss battles are literally just the Ouroboros monsters from RE5 and Carla's boss from Resident Evil 6. It's almost like Capcom has completely forgotten how to design enemies. The RE2 remake even had this problem. The evolved lickers, moths, spiders, and crows were all removed, and the G-adult boss was reduced to a sub-boss. But anyway, back to Resident Evil 7. The base game doesn't even have that much replayability. All the extra modes are DLC, which aren't even worth buying, except maybe the End of Zoe, which looks like it could be interesting. But the main game is such a bore, I wouldn't want to spend any more money on this. And not to mention, the story that is there should have been in the main game, not along with the Not a Hero, because both of those DLCs actually finish the story. Speaking of Not a Hero, it's okay, I guess. It's the only DLC I played because it was free. Chris actually has some character which is refreshing, and the enemies can be interesting. But, oh wait, no, they're not, because it's just the same molded again. It's just more molded variations over again. But seriously, about the DLC in this game, want to find out what happens to Zoe? Buy the DLC. Oh, want to find out what Chris is even doing in this game, or what even happened to Lucas? Wait almost an entire year for a 30-minute DLC. Resident Evil 7 is the only main Resident Evil game I played once and never touched again until I decided to make this video, and honestly, after replaying it, I think I hate it even more than I did when I first played it. Before I finish this up, I want to talk about the gameplay. I think the first person, viewpoint is fine. I just think Capcom handled it really bad. Landing headshots in this game is super weird. I can't really explain it. It's kind of the same thing as Resident Evil 2, where you have to stand still for a better chance of a critical, but the enemies move really, twitchy in this game, and the FOV is really, really bad. And not only can you not change it, but aiming can be a bit difficult with it sometimes, because, I don't know why, there's, 3 different stances that Ethan takes. One is, kind of this idle pose when you're running, he's holding the gun up. Then there's, another pose, then there's, another pose when you aim. It's just, it's a little weird, it's a little funky. It could have been done a lot better. This isn't because, and like I said, the first person isn't, the problem with it. I play shooters all the time. It's just really the FOV that kind of fucks it up. But anyway, to conclude, this game has a lot going for it, but in the end, it's just a really boring game. It's a bore to play, it's a chore to play, and it isn't very fun or entertaining. Despite having common puzzles and Chris Redfield's in 2 seconds of the game and a brief few mentions of previous games, it really doesn't even feel like a Resident Evil game. Again, it's got a lot going for it, but in the end, it just really falls short. If there were more monsters and Ethan had more personality, I think the game would be a lot better. But it's not, so... I'm gonna wrap this video up with this. I'm gonna end on this note. Thank you guys for watching so much. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you like Resident Evil stuff, please consider subscribing to my channel. I make Resident Evil content on a weekly basis in addition to other games. I also cover similar to Resident Evil, so if you're always looking for something new to check out, definitely consider subscribing to this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a nice day.